Okay.
Okay. Good morning. This is the pre-meeting of the Mobile City Council, Wednesday, February 17th. We have approval of minutes from February the 9th.
Great, no problem.
Okay, we have appeals. A request for waiver of the noise ordinance on March the 5th from 7 until 8:30 p.m. on Wildwood Place. March 27th from 1 to 5 in Cathedral Square. In Bienville Square on March 6th, 13th, and 20th from 1 to 5. And on Government Boulevard every Tuesday in February and March from 5 to 8.
Joel,
There's CJ.
that good with you, Joe?
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Morning, CJ.
Morning,
What kind of-
CJ. Sorry about my tardiness. LeVon is not gonna make it at 10:30, but we can go ahead and just get started.
Yeah, we are started.
Oh.
We're down to public hearing, CJ.
We did the appeals. We're at public hearings.
CJ, did you say
Okay.
he will be here at 10:30?
He will be here at 10:30, yes, sir.
We can't lose another one.
No.
Public hearings. Today is a public hearing to rezone property located at 107 and 111 North Lafayette Street and 106 Providence Street, north side of O'Shea Road, extending to the east side of Providence. Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. We have no one signed in for it.
All right
Non-agenda
now.
item. Essential COVID item. Yes, sir.
Just, although we will have someone speaking at the pre-council at my request. I'd asked LeVon, he agreed,
Oh,
and Joel's aware.
Miss.
Yeah. And it's gonna be
Reynolds.
when we get to that point, when we get to that item.
We have Mr. Reynolds. Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. Essential COVID-19 items held over.
Table.
27024, ordinance to regulate food trucks.
That gets tabled.
Yep.
Okay. And 57001, amend Chapter 57, Article 2, Division 2, Mobile City Code to add a new section on food trucks.
That gets tabled.
Yep. 57008, ordinance to amend Chapter 57 of the City Code to add a new section for food trucks. This is the one we voted on.
This one gets acted on.
Okay. 34003, ordinance to amend Chapter 34 of the City Code to include the real property business privilege tax applicable to lessors of residential buildings and dwellings to the schedule of licenses.
Okay, Madam, Mr. Vice President.
Yes, sir.
There's two comments I want to make here. One is that I'm going to ask for this to go back to committee based on some revelations that have come my way, mostly because of Mr. Reynolds, who I invited today. It was thought that maybe today that we would make some changes in the pre-council meeting or get some clarification and go ahead and vote. But there's too many unknowns, in my opinion, to proceed as requested with regard to Chapter 34 and its change in license, schedule of license. So I will, if at the pleasure of the council, again, I had already asked LeVon, not knowing he wasn't going to be here, if you allow Mr. Reynolds to go ahead and speak since he's with us this morning.
Yeah, no, I don't have no issue with it whatsoever.
Mr. Reynolds, are you?
Okay, just 1 minute. Let me get his deal started. Okay.
How long will Mr. Reynolds have?
There we go.
Good morning, Ben Reynolds, 3908 St. Andrews Loop in Mobile. I won't take too terribly long here, but I hope you all join with John in sending this one back to committee for additional review. The concerns I have and many other landlords in the city have with this ordinance is I don't think reduce the number of slumlords or, address contact information for properties with major code violations, that sort of thing. And it's just, I don't think that this ordinance really accomplishes much in that way. Also, kind of the bigger issue is that it was represented that this doesn't affect the law as written today. This license be purchased per individual dwelling location. And there's nothing in the ordinance that explicitly says that that is the case today. I contend that that's just simply not the law. And then we've got, I've been in contact with owners of properties that represent over 1,000 properties, and certainly not enforced that way. It's not understood to them that it's required to buy a business license per location today, but this ordinance, no doubt, would require that. So to get back to the 10 or less exemption, the exemption currently requires that an affidavit, if you want to take advantage of the exemption, an affidavit be filed in order to give the owner's information, the property information, all that sort of stuff. And it's been put forward that this exemption's been taken advantage of by owners of properties, and we can't get in touch with them. Well, if they're if they're properly filing the exemption today, then we should have all their contact information. We should know where the properties are. Unfortunately, I don't think any of this was really discussed thoroughly in the original reading or in the committee meeting. So I would ask that, the committee or the council, have the opportunity to discuss items that wasn't brought forward to them today, before. That's all I have. If you have any questions, I'm available. I'll do my best to answer. Thank you.
Is anybody from the administration here?
Yes,
Can someone speak?
we're sitting here listening, Councilman, and, if they want to go back to committee, we'll be glad to clarify these issues. And, what we have, though, is that unless we figure out a way to understand who owns a property, they will always remain anonymous. And if they remain anonymous, they can't whatever we come up with cannot be enforced. So we'll be glad to go back to committee and discuss the issues if that's what the council wants to do.
Mr. Vice President,
Mr. Richardson,
during our committee meeting, we had a long discussion on why it was necessary for all persons with rental property to get a license. It was stated then, so the city would have a record, who they are, where they are. So the idea that we have not discussed this, we have gone over this. It was discussed in our committee meeting. That was the purpose. So it seems to me that it's some people who don't want to pay, who don't want to register. They don't want to pay the tax. They don't want to get a license. That's all they're asking them to do is $25 for the license. They don't want to pay $25. Okay, so then they got to come back and tell us how the city can be assured of who they are, where they are, and all of that. You just can't be out there and the city not know. So I don't see where having another meeting on this. We've already met. We've met on this. We discussed this. And if it's a lot of people out there who are concerned, we haven't heard from them. They haven't come down. I haven't heard from them.
Mr. Wade.
That's all I got to say.
Very much. Well, the issue, and I don't disagree with Fred that there was a lot of conversation. If you'll recall, there was nobody from the industry whatsoever at that meeting. I don't know if it was it just didn't get out there. Sometimes our word doesn't get out there. People are not hanging on every meeting that we have and where we announce these things. It was announced in announcements that we would go on and have it. And Fred was an advocate for taking it to a committee, which was the right thing to do.
Right.
But it's not about having a license. The issue is about having a license on every single property. I very specifically, and here, I wasn't going to say this here, but I'll say it now. I very specifically asked the question, is there any changes for property owners of 10 or more? And the answer was very clear. No, there are no changes for those with 10 or more properties. And the fact is, it is a huge change in that instead of having one business license, charge a single factor, which is a license fee factor, in the schedule of license fees. Now they must not only file gross receipts and pay that factor, but they have to have a license per individual property for every single location. That's the way it's written. And I asked questions. See, I did not have all the paperwork that I have now, including the existing ordinances, which brings up, we ought to have, every time we change an ordinance, have a red line document. In this case, why didn't we have one? Because there's 4 separate amendments already on the books that if you're reading the ordinance, you don't know that it's there necessarily. There are 4 amendments already. 1 in 87, 2 in 87, and 2 in 88. What that says is we probably didn't understand the amendment when we made it, so we had to amend again, and that happened in 2 different years. And what I don't want to have happen is for us to have to come back again, like in 87 and in 88, and have to amend the second time because we didn't fully understand the implication. I believe that everyone, unless we understand the exemption completely, that is why 3 units? Why 10 dwellings? Who's exempt? The housing board, I think, is kind of self-explanatory. But why doesn't everybody have to get one license and file a list of all their properties instead of doing a license on every single individual? I don't know if y'all have ever, CJ's done it probably, had to file a business license. It's not the easiest thing on our website. It's not the easiest thing. And to have to do it 40 times for one landowner that has 40 different properties, it seems like an unnecessary burden that I did not get the answer. I asked, is there any changes for 10 or more than 10 rather? And the answer was no. It's clearly and so now I have questions about the mechanics of and how we can make it simpler for those who are keeping up their properties. Because I'll tell you right now, the person that is not filing the affidavits, the one that we don't know where they are, they're not going to file for 10 and more. I don't want to make it enforceable. And I think with a little bit of time, couple of weeks, and I told Joel, let me do Fred, you wouldn't have to come to the committee meeting because it'd be in the rules committee. We'll just discuss it one more time and let the administration clarify some of these questions that are coming out.
Mr. Vice President.
Dave?
I did have a conversation with Councilman Williams, and he very kindly offered to let it go to the Rules Committee, but I said that I'd be happy for it to come back to the Finance Committee. There does seem to be some questions about how the proposed ordinance would operate. I support it going back to committee, but I tire of having these committee meetings that we advertise and then we have, and then we find out later on that people who had an interest in what we were doing don't show up. And then we have to have another committee meeting. And I promise you, we're going to have another committee meeting. And after we have that committee meeting, we'll come up with something, and we'll still have people show up that object to what we're doing, that say they didn't have a voice, and that kind of thing. And you reach a point where you just have to shut the door. But I support it going back to the Finance Committee for another hearing. And, but, I certainly hope that everybody who has an interest in it will show up at the next committee meeting.
Got it.
Yeah, I also do support going back to committee. And the reason why, because there's some issues that had popped up a couple of weeks ago that I had faced upon an ordinance that this council had passed. And I remember talking to Mr. Nick Amberger. He was like, your council is the one who passed this particular ordinance. And I was, you pretty much did not know what y'all was pretty much voting on at the particular time. I was like, man, this particular project is costing me. And he was like, you all passed it. And pretty much, if I kind of understood, now what I understood then before I voted to pass that particular ordinance, I probably would have amended some type of way, because pretty much it's hurting, the average, citizen who's suffering from the same thing I was suffering from, pockets and everything. But if something comes to light and we need to look at it, I believe that we need to look at it, especially it can hinder some people, in the future, citizens in the future and everything. So I do, support this going back to the, I believe that Mr. Williams said he already talked to Levon Manzi, President of College. Mr. Davis said he'll take it back to the Finance Committee. So Mr. Davis, just come up with a date and then we can just go forward from there. Okay.
Can we hold it over 2 weeks?
Sounds good. Madam Clerk.
Ms. Reynolds.
$57,009, ordinance to amend Chapter 57, Article 8 of the City Code, and to add a new Article 9, small cell facilities on public rights of way.
Is Flo on here somewhere? Yeah, Flo.
Yes.
Good morning,
What's I know that there's pressure on us to act immediately on this. What is the timeline on that pressure?
Last week, the state legislature adopted the statewide act, which would allow at the state level small cell facilities on city rights of way, and exempted from the scope of that act are cities that have adopted ordinances by May of this year. So it's imperative that this ordinance be adopted prior to May.
I don't have any problem with moving forward.
I don't either.
Mr. Williams.
Well, here's my deal, and I have not heard from her. I don't know, but if we got until May to act, one more week while Bess could be here to voice her differences with it one more time. And again, this is not, as I understand, an elective absence today on her behalf, and I know that if she would have thought about it, she would have asked us to delay the vote on it so that she could voice the position of her office. I'm just guessing though.
I'm not against it.
I'm not either.
Not against
Let's lay it over for a week.
Yep.
All right, Madam Clerk.
64010, ordinance to rezone property located at 1901 Hertel Street from R1 to R3.
Council attorney has sent us a amendment out, I believe on yesterday, and pretty much want to amend is that, by adding a 8-foot fence around this particular property. Many of around the residents around it is more concerned about the safety and the security, of their particular property. And a lot of rumors have went out that it really have brought, very cautious significant attention, with that. With that being said, asking that you all support this amendment this morning to go ahead and add a 8-foot fence. And we also know that this particular property, as we have heard on the news, that the school board is having it back up for sale for another 30 days. I asked our attorney, could we go forward with it? And he did say we can go forward with it, reminding that what's before us is the rezoning, which is the school board did give permission for it.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Archers.
Yeah, on the, to clarify a little further, the applicant submitted a voluntary use restriction on this property, agreeing to put a fence if the rezoning is granted. So you don't have to amend it just when you do your motion. Just say move to approve, subject to and contingent on the voluntary use restriction that was submitted by the applicant. And that'll cover it.
Okay, all right, thank you so much.
And CJ, you'll take care of making that statement.
Yes, sir.
64036, ordinance to rezone property located at the east terminus of Blue Ridge Boulevard, extending to the west terminus of Old Dobbin Drive North, the west terminus of Harness Way, the north terminus of Creekline Drive, and the north terminus of Valleydale Drive from R1, R2, and B1 to R1.
Hold that over 1 week.
08083, approved purchase order to Deere and Company for 6 John Deere utility vehicles. 08084, approved purchase order to Florida Caribbean Cruise Association for annual membership. 13085, authorized change order number 2 to the contract of Harris Contracting Services for Rickaby Park grading and drainage improvements. 13086, authorized contract change order number 2 with John G. Walton Construction for Baltimore Street and drainage rehabilitation from Ann Street to I-10 Service Road. 21087, authorized contract with Grant Nichols Construction for construction of O'Shea Road sidewalks from Union Avenue to Highland Avenue. 21088, authorized service contract with TAW Power Systems for emergency generators, preventative maintenance and service, various city facilities. 21089, authorized contract with Gorham Air Conditioning for dehumidifier replacement in the therapy pool room at the County Hudson Senior Center. 23090, accept deeds for right-of-way for the McGregor Avenue widening project. 25091, accept a permanent sidewalk easement from USA for 2021 citywide annual sidewalk repair and maintenance. 25092, grant easements to Alabama Power Company for guy wire installation on Ziegler Boulevard. 60108, approved settlement agreement and release of claims, Audrey Sawyer, Royale, Reese, Michael, and Robin Freeman. 09110, reallocate monies from District 7 capital projects to Mobile Botanical Gardens. 21111, authorized management agreement with Botanical Gardens.
Okay, I think we're gonna hold up on 21111. Is that correct? And
That's my
Yes.
understanding. Yeah.
they're gonna have a new,
21111 gets hold over a week.
Oh, tabling it.
Table.
Table. Okay, table.
So then we'll add that one later.
That's the thing you just gave me.
Yeah. Essential COVID-19 items being introduced. 64011, ordinance to rezone property located at 107 and 111 North Lafayette Street and 106 Providence Street from B1 and R1 to R1. 08113, approved purchase order to Bagman Russell for Part installation for streetlights in Battery Heights, $151,172.60.
I have a question on this one. Where is Battery Heights? I've never heard of Battery Heights.
It's in the, Fred, it's in the Linecoff district.
What are we doing over there?
We're replacing they had an old street light, and we're a lot of the poles had rusted and fallen over. And we're making all those repairs and putting in a new electrical circuit for it.
All right.
I believe this is in Manzi's. This is one of Manzi's CIP projects.
Okay. Sounds good.
08114, approved purchase order to Deere and Company for 7 zero-turn mowers, $131,075.28. 08115, approved purchase order to Blue Rents for tent setup and rental for Civic Center drive-through COVID vac site, $43,822.73.
But I have a question on that one. Is this an emergency item?
Councilman Daves, this is Don Rose. Yeah, yes, it is. It could be categorized as that. It would be, we had to go ahead and order it. So this is kind of a ratification I'm asking for today because we had to set that up to start the vaccinations. And we needed the tents because the post-vaccination 15-minute observation period, all the hospital workers need to be able to access it. So we had to put up a lot more tents.
Go ahead and clear it up.
What, John?
Let's just go ahead and clear it up.
Okay.
09116, authorized reallocation of funds from operating budget to capital budget for security upgrades at multiple public works facilities. 21117, authorized contract with Southern Earth Sciences for Texas Street rehabilitation from Ann Street to Broad Street and Ann Street rehabilitation from Tennessee Street ditch to Virginia Street, $150,000.
Did you skip that one? Did you skip the Southern Rail? Or did I miss it?
We haven't got to it yet.
All right, then I've advanced too far. I'm okay. I'm looking. I'm looking at the
21117.
I just read that one. I'm at 21118. Authorized contract with McCory and Williams for Texas Street rehabilitation from Ann Street to Broad Street and Ann Street rehabilitation from Tennessee Street ditch to Virginia Street, $330,875. 31119, authorize a grant application to the Southern Rail Commission for an alternate site analysis to support the return of passenger rail service along the Gulf Coast, matching funds of $80,100.
Can we talk about that?
Sure.
Like what's the total? How much we've had, what's going on, what's it gonna get us here? Just kind of, it is raising some eyebrows around the city, so I just.
Yeah, John, I'd be happy to start off because I called Brad about this. Obviously, it caught my attention last week when I saw it. And I can provide some initial information and then maybe someone else could chime in. Brad says in an email to me, when we were told that the original legacy site on Water Street in front of Cooper Park could not be used for the proposed passenger rail terminal, we had lengthy discussions with the Southern Rail Commission and Federal Rail Administration about an alternate site, primarily Brooklyn.
Right.
It was determined by the FRA, the Federal Rail Administration, that in order to maintain the existing grant, remember we asked for a grant backwards, without paying back funds already received by the city, which is $95,000, we would need to complete a pre-NEPA alternate site analysis to look at a number of sites and determine the best option moving forward. As with any federal grant of this type, the analysis involves a lot more than just a location that could work for us. We will have to look at connectivity, site parameters, proximity to the existing CSX track, and ability to construct a stub track for Amtrak use, potential conflicts with existing rail traffic, and other issues. This study will also include public outreach and input. This grant funds the cost of alternate site analysis at 50%, with the city providing the additional 50%. So to answer your immediate question, it's $160,000, and we'd be paying for half of that. The consultant is the same one that has done the design work to date, Mott McDonald. Now, you'll remember that a year ago, when this issue came up, and we approved a resolution endorsing the idea contingent, there were two contingencies we put on that endorsement. One was the city's support. I'm reading off the resolution. The city's support is contingent on the commission, the Southern Rail Commission, procuring funds from other sources to construct a passenger rail station and to undertake necessary capital improvements to the rail corridor in order to successfully accommodate freight and passenger rail. Now we're being asked to provide additional funding for the train station, which we said the SRC was going to have to fund. The second condition was that the city's support is contingent upon completion of a freight rail study, assessing the full impact that passenger rail service will have on freight activity and the city's determination that the impact can be mitigated. That the study should include an evaluation of the impact of how freight is moved and its operability within the Port of Mobile. This evaluation should factor in the planned growth of the port, including the impact of widening and deepening the Mobile ship channel. We have not received the impact study. As a matter of fact, I've been informed that Amtrak has canceled the impact study. In other words, there will be no impact study, which is one of the conditions we put on city funding. So my position is we shouldn't provide this $80,000.
Until the exemptions are met. Yeah. Let's finish what we started.
There's no reason for us to provide any funding until the two preconditions we set a year ago have been met.
Right. I don't disagree. Who disagrees with us?
Well, let me just say that the city has had to put money up for two forms of transportation. That's cruise and rail. When it came down to the cruise, we built the cruise terminal. As a matter of fact, we were willing to build a cruise terminal without even having a cruise ship, because we were going to waive that at the cruise ship industry. And we went on, and so we come down to a place for the train to stop. We're not too hot on the train, you know. We find all kind of reasons not to. I think Joe raised his opposition to rail transportation the last time we had a discussion on this. Last time we discussed this issue. I support rail transportation, and I support us having to do whatever we need to do to get rail transportation here. I think that's a drop in the bucket in terms of what would happen to our city if people had this final mode of transportation, which is rail. They can get to this city by interstate. They can come here by the water. They can fly in here, but we don't have rail transportation. And we are debating this, that, and the other. I said, let's move on. That's what I said.
Mr. President,
Thanks.
I hesitate to get into the pluses and minuses of the restoration of rail service that's being proposed. And I wouldn't have, except that Fred Fred mentioned, Fred always comes back to this as it's a viable transportation alternative. It's not a viable transportation alternative. If we were talking about the restoration of rail service from Jacksonville to Los Angeles, that would be a different story. But we're not. We're talking about a short line railroad from Mobile to New Orleans. From Mobile to New Orleans. That is not an alternative transportation, a viable alternative transportation. It is a fun ride. It is a amusement park on wheels. That's what it is.
I disagree, Mr. Vice President. If I've caught a train, Amtrak train in Los Angeles, California, I'm trying to get to Mobile, Alabama. When I get to New Orleans, I have to get off the train and find some other way to get there.
Still not get off the train.
So it's more than from the track is from New Orleans to Mobile, but that's not the impact. If you come from Chicago, you can come and look at them little cities in Mississippi that got with Amtrak. You can come right on down to New Orleans, right on into Mobile without getting off the train. Now, that's it. You get to New Orleans, that's it. What about Mobile? Ain't with no tracks going over there. There's no tracks over there. That's just like saying if we had an interstate system that went from Mobile to New Orleans, that's the end. No, they have other interstate systems in New Orleans that can take you other places. 55, all kind of interstates that you can go anywhere you want to go if you can get to New Orleans. So that is not true. It's more than just from Mobile to New Orleans. It's from all over the United States to Mobile. But in order to do that, we have to have a leg from New Orleans to Mobile.
Council, we know that the administration had put this on our agenda, and I'd like to see what the administration would like to respond to this in any kind of way.
Mr. Small, this is Brad Christensen.
Yeah.
Just a point, obviously the council is free to do what they want. I just wanted to point out a couple of facts. In my last conversation with the Southern Rail Commission and the Federal Rail, they told me that the impact study that Amtrak was doing on the tracks was not canceled. It was just delayed and would be several more months. Now, I can't vouch or not vouch for what Mr. Joel Days was told, but that was the information that was given to me. The other thing is important here is the Federal Rail is requiring this study. They have given us pretty much an extension on the existing grant in order for us to complete this alternate site analysis. If we do not, then that grant extension would go away and we would be liable for reimbursing Federal Rail and SRC about $95,000. And if we were to ever want to apply for federal funding, for FRA funding for design or construction in the future, they're going to require this same study. So we'll end up spending the same money in the future if that's ever the decision of the city to move forward. So,
Mr. President,
Days.
I would just comment again. We set two preconditions. One was that the SRC would fund the station and what other track alterations were required to serve the station, and that there would be an impact study. Neither one of those two preconditions have been met. And when I talked to Mr. Christensen the other day about this, he said that the SRC does not give 100% grants. So we have in here that the SRC is going to pay 100% of the station, but the SRC doesn't pay 100% of anything. They only pay 50%. So where's the other 50% going to come from? All I'd say is that As far as paying back the $95,000, all we'd be doing if we pay in the $80,000 is throwing good money after bad.
I disagree.
Mr. Christensen, I have a question. Is there a time limit that we got to have this submitted by, voted on?
Not right now. We had talked about a grant extension long enough to allow the study to take place, which could be, I think, 4 months or so. We'd be well into mid-year. But there is no specific deadline for that. I'd really have to discuss that back with the SRC and FRA to see if they have any, interim deadlines or things that they would like to see.
Because it's what I'm, was thinking, if we could probably lay this over, and just in case other council member have any questions, administration need to answer any questions to any council members or need to find out any information,
Yep.
we can just do so in that time period. Besides, if this go forth today.
No, this is first read. It's going to lay over for a week anyway.
Okay, so we will lay this over. Okay.
Yeah, it's this first.
Okay. Well, good.
We may lay it over. We may lay it over longer than that as well. Just we even a couple of weeks or 2 or 3 weeks we'd be fine with, just because we want to get all the answers to the things that you all have talked about.
Well, we just lay over for 1 week and come back and visit it next week and everything.
Mr. Vice President,
Mr. Richardson.
I'm going to close my comment out on this by saying if we have to spend $160,000 to get rail transportation in our city, it's a drop in the bucket. We have $60 million. We up here talking about $80,000 to get Amtrak into our city. I said this is Councilman Daves has already expressed opposition to Amtrak. And he told us why he was opposed to it, that the poor people can get up there on that train and ride it. I say we need this city, we need every mode of transportation to get visitors here. Go. We were in Savannah, and Savannah had millions of visitors per year. Savannah is smaller than the city of Mobile. You can access Savannah with all modes of transportation. They're moving on. Here we are again. Well, $80,000, like the city going broke if we spent $80,000. I know we're going to lay it over, but let the record be clear that I support the city of Mobile doing what it needs to do to bring Amtrak to Mobile.
Mr. Vice President.
Mr. Davis.
A couple of things. One is the only reason we pay the $80,000. Now, Fred, I understand. Fred doesn't care about the preconditions that we make. He's willing to throw the preconditions into the trash can and go ahead and sign up for the $3 million today. Now, let me tell you something. When we were going through the annexation fight, we heard a lot of stories about taking on new people when we can't serve the people that we already have. I think of what that $3 million, and that's just the first 3 years, and that's subsidized. If the thing goes on after that, it's millions of dollars a year, the subsidy the city of Mobile would have to pay. And I think of the underserved communities that could benefit from those millions of dollars every single year, instead of providing a fun ride for the affluent. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Okay. Mr. Williams, you good?
I am now. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
37120, recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a restaurant retail liquor license for Cracker Barrel on I-65 Service Road South. 58121, declare weeds noxious, Wheatland Group 1612. 6122, approve award of special bonus to the January firefighter of the month, Stephen.
Oh, hold on, Madam Clerk. Okay, Cracker Barrel on the I-60, did you say the I-65 Service Road?
Yeah, that's one,
It's
that's
not but
one pretty
one
off
over
an
there.
airport.
That's in District 1.
Is it?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
District
I
1. Yeah.
am north of Imogene.
Yeah, that's right.
Everything south of Imogene belongs to Joel. Everything north of Imogene belongs to Fred Richardson. This venue is in District 1.
It is in District
Okay,
1.
we'll
Fred's
change
absolutely
that.
right. It's absolutely right. I see everything north of Imogene to Fred.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay, 60123, we're adding that one, and that is to authorize the management agreement with the Mobile Botanical Gardens, $150,000.
And that's first read, so it's gonna hold over 1 week.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the ones we're
Okay,
taking up, the ones we're taking up today, let me go ahead and do this since I started.
Oh, okay.
Are 08125 for Blue Rents Tents. And then the liquor license for the Cracker Barrel in Fred's district. And then the noxious weeds and the special bonus. Those are the only items
Okay. Call for public hearing, 41123, call for public hearing to consider the vacation of right-of-way between lots 3 and 4 Westwood Farms re-subdivision on Halls Mill Road, scheduled March 16th. 41124, call for public hearing to consider the vacation fee for vacation of right-of-way between lots 3 and 4 Westwood Farms re-subdivision on Halls Mill Road, scheduled March 16th. The proposed amount is $5,662.02. Announcements, there will be an entitlement committee meeting immediately following the regular council meeting today.
Can I ask Chairman Richardson what the content of that meeting is? What's going to happen at that?
It's time for the city to submit its application for CDBG funds and all those other funds to HUD. And normally what we do, we discuss that before we put it on the council agenda. So Jamie Roberts going to present that information, and then we'll put it on the agenda. It's standard procedure. Is what we do every year.
Okay.
Mr. Vice President.
Richardson.
I would just like to say to John that I think you had something by saying if a person owns multiple rental houses to put them all on the same application. I had never heard that before. I think you have something. I'm looking forward to the committee.
Thank you.
And other councilors? Do we have anything from the mayor or the administration?
Nothing additional.
Okay. All hearts and minds. If so, I'll see you all at 10:30.